the glory of His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I'm like a small bird trying to empty the ocean by carrying drops of water to the land. The picture I've given of Srila Prabhupada is only a glimpse into His unlimited mercy. And that glimpse has only been possible by the grace of Guru and Das Goswami. Acknowledgements. I would like to acknowledge the many persons who cooperated to make this biography of Srila Prabhupada possible. Notable among them are Charya Devi Dasi, Agraya Das, Arundhati Devi Dasi, Astasaki Devi Dasi, Baladev Vijabhushanam Das, Balai Devi Dasi, Bharadraj Das, Bhakti Charu Swami, Bhakti Marg Devi Dasi, Vimala Devi Dasi, Brahma Sampradaya Devi Dasi, Brihat Madunga Das, Das Yaras Devi Dasi, Drishtaketu Das, Driti Devi Dasi, Dukhanantri Devi Dasi, Ekanath Das, Gopranim Das, Gopi Paranadana Das, Jadarani Devi Dasi, Jagadishvari Devi Dasi, Jagad Karana Devi Dasi, Jayadvaita Swami, Jayapataka Swami, Jita Shakti Devi Dasi, Kirtan Rasa Das, Kshama Devi Dasi, Krishna Gopal Das, Krishna Sneha Das, Kundali Das, Kushakrata Das, Mamath Devi Dasi, Mandaleshwar Das, Mukunda Goswami, Nagaraj Das, Narad Rishi Das, Narayani Devi Dasi, Nitya Tripta Devi Dasi, Paramarupa Das, Parikshit Das, Patita Pranada Devi Dasi, Purnachandra Devi Dasi, Adavalabha Das, Rajendranath Das, Ramadas Abhiram Das, Rameshwar Das, Riksharaj Das, Rukmani Devi Dasi, Sadhana Siddhi Das, Santosh Das, Sarvabhavana Das, Shesha Das, Shingeshwara Das, Sita Devi Dasi, Shrikanta Das, Subhadra Devi Dasi, Shureshwara Das, Tejas Das, Vijayananda Das, Vishaka Devi Dasi, Dadubar Das, and Yamaraj Das. So I'd like to read the introduction.
From childhood, Srila Prabhupada worshipped Lord Krishna, understanding him to be Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all existence, and beginning at age 22. After his first meeting with the spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada became more and more active in spiritual teachings of Lord Krishna. In Srila Prabhupada, Lilamrita Volume 1, we see Srila Prabhupada struggling alone to publish Back to Godhead magazine, personally typing, editing, visiting the printer, and then distributing the copies on the streets of New Delhi. Working alone in Jhansi, India, Prabhupada gathered a few part-time followers to create the League of Devotees, an early attempt to enact his vision of introducing people from all nations, race, level of society to Krishna, the Supreme Person Godhead. Srila Prabhupada was still alone as he arrived in America in 1965, but he was filled with faith in Krishna and determined to establish Krishna consciousness in the West, and thus fulfill the desire of his spiritual master and the prediction of the scriptures and previous saints. Young men and women on New York Lower East Side joined various cultures as to Swamiji and his chanting of Hare Krishna. Thus, beginning from a small storefront, Srila Prabhupada introduced the Hare Krishna movement to America. We follow Srila Prabhupada to San Francisco, Hecti Ashby, during the hippie heyday of 1967, as he established his Krishna conscious movement there, just as he had done in New York City. Then in May, he appeared to suffer a heart attack and retired to India to recuperate. It became even clearer that the Krishna conscious movement, its life and its growth depended entirely upon him. Although dedicated to his service, they felt helpless and incompetent to do any missionary work, or even to maintain their own spiritual vow to abstain from illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, unless he were personally present with them. In December 1967, Srila Prabhupada returned to America and his young spiritual. As Srila Prabhupada would comment several years later, his movement didn't really begin until his return to America in December 1967. His time was limited. He had proven that. Now, in whatever time was left, he had to accomplish his mission. And as his international society Krishna consciousness began to grow, it gradually spread beyond its simple and sometimes spiritual institution considered noteworthy even among world religions. In the present volume, we follow Srila Prabhupada through the years of his greatest active participation in ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, as its sole leader. In 1968, Srila Prabhupada had approximately 50 disciples and 6 ISKCON centers. Although his followers have increased their numbers, most of them are no more than sincere neophytes. Prabhupada is personally available to each of his disciples, and he continues to manage and maintain each ISKCON center. Then in July of 1970, Srila Prabhupada formed his governing body commission and begins to turn over ISKCON's management to his board of GBC secretaries. Yet we find Prabhupada still actively guiding the activities of his society, expanded by 1971 to 600 disciples and 65 centers. Although teachings of Krishna consciousness have existed since time immemorial within India's Sanskrit Vedic literatures and are the origin and essence of all religious expression until Srila Prabhupada began his preaching. Krishna consciousness in its original purity had never been widely spread. In the most popular and basic Vedic text, Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna teaches that he is a supreme person of Godhead and that real religion, real knowledge, and real endeavor can be understood only when one dedicates his life to the loving service of the Lord. Only full surrender to the Supreme can bring one freedom from the laws of karma and the cycle of repeated birth and death. Srila Prabhupada was convinced that devotional service to Lord Krishna is life's goal and that to engage others in devotional service is the highest welfare activity. And these convictions drove him in his traveling and preaching on behalf of his spiritual master and Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's success in spreading Krishna consciousness was due to his being directly empowered by Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chaitanya Charitamrita state, Kali Kaleram Dhana, Krishna Sakti Vinah Nahe Tare Parva Parvartane Vartana. The fundamental religion system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtana movement. Yet, although Srila Prabhupada was empowered, his life story is not one in which success comes neatly and automatically, everything being miraculously enacted by God. Rather, Srila Prabhupada's story is one of the constant attempts on behalf of his spiritual master. Success comes, but only after great endeavor and faith. Prabhupada encountered difficulties in trying to spread love of God in the godless world. He sometimes met opposition from government, the media, and religionists, including those in India, and even within his own society, he met difficulties caused when his neophyte disciples fell to the allurement of the material world. Yet, through all difficulties, Srila Prabhupada has preserved the sublime tolerance, kindness, and unflinching determination of the pure devotee of Lord Krishna. By material statements, it's extraordinary that a person, in material standards, it is extraordinary that a person of Srila Prabhupada's age could constantly travel, confront problems and opposition, and simultaneously produce volumes after volumes of translated Vedic literatures. But material vision cannot comprehend Srila Prabhupada's activities. He was truly a Mahatma, as described by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. The Mahatma are always working under the direction of my internal energy in spreading Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada was far from merely a religious zealot trying to increase a sect. His writings traveling, and preaching were done in pure devotion to Lord Krishna and were therefore transcendental. It was Krishna himself, Srila Prabhupada saw, who was bringing the results. Lord Chaitanya has stated, Prithiviti Acha Yatat Nagaradi Grame Grame Sarvatra Prachara Highway Mora Name Nama. In every town and village, the chanting of my name will be heard. These words, directly spoken by Lord Chaitanya, are certainly true. The Lord's prediction must come to pass. Many Gaudiya Vaishnavas, however, even as recently as the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, considered the Lord's prediction problematic. The name of Lord Chaitanya in every town and should this be taken logically? Certainly, the Americans, the Europeans, the Africans, the Polynesians, the Mongolians, the uncultured Malichas outside of India could never become Vaishnava. Thus, Lord Chaitanya's word had seemed an enigmatic topic for speculation. Srila Prabhupada, however, was under order from his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, to preach Krishna consciousness beyond India. And alone in 1965, he took the great step and left India, across the Atlantic, and began the international of Krishna consciousness. And although some of the Prabhupada's godbrothers had gone to England some 30 years before, they had failed to establish anything and had even concluded that to give Krishna consciousness to the Western peoples was not possible. But Srila Prabhupada, fulfilling Lord Chaitanya's prediction, traveled, employed his disciples in traveling to open centers in New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, Montreal, Buffalo, Seattle. He also sent his disciples abroad to London, other countries, and they succeeded where Srila Prabhupada godbrothers had failed. At the present volume explains Srila Prabhupada traveled not only to enlist new devotees and establish Krishna consciousness in new places around the world, but also to maintain what he had already begun. Had he not continued to travel to each temple, instructing his disciples, observing their progress, correcting their mistakes, raising the standards of the Krishna consciousness, the devotee would not have been able to continue. Repeatedly, Prabhupada had to go around the world. Srila Prabhupada, by his faith in Krishna, by his selfless dedication to the orders of his spiritual master, and by the blessings of Lord Chaitanya, did what no one else could have done. As Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Krishna Sakti Vina Nahi Tare Parvartane. Only one empowered by Lord Krishna can actually spread the chanting of Hare Krishna around the world. This volume is an account of years of struggle and ultimate fulfillment in Srila Prabhupada's life, and I invite the readers to relish them. Here is the rags to riches, stories of one who started alone with nothing, but writing and personal life created astounding and permanent impression on the world. By following Srila Prabhupada through these times, we gain an understanding of his exalted and humble life. I am unable to describe Srila Prabhupada fully. I have therefore composed an invocation be permitted to tell this story purely from a transcendental viewpoint. Otherwise, it would be ruined and incomprehensible. When properly told, the life of pure devotee brings the greatest joy and benefit to the hearers. Hare Krishna.
Invocation. According to Krishnadasa Kaviraja, an invocation involves offering obeisances, defining the objective, and bestowing benedictions. I offer my respectful obeisances to my eternal spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, whose service is my life and soul. It is for his pleasure that I offer Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita as an act of devotional service. He has blessed the entire world with Krishna consciousness, and he is therefore the best friend of all people and all living entities. He is the most powerful Acharya delivering pure love of God, and he is delivering the message of Lord Chaitanya strictly in disciplic succession. No one else has ever spread Krishna consciousness as widely as he. I am praying that He will allow me to surmount the difficulties involved in presenting His biography, and that He will be pleased with the result, that by His good wishes this work can be successful, and that if He is not pleased, I am powerless to write anything of merit. By offering obeisances to my spiritual master, I am offering respects to all other acharyas in the disciplic succession, to Srila Prabhupada's guru, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, to his guru, and so on, to the six Goswamis, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna himself. One Prabhupada, can I best bow down in the temple, prostrate at the lotus feet of Gauranitai, Krishna Balarama, and Radha Shyama Sundara, and have access to their mercy? One objective of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita is to present the life and teachings of Srila Prabhupada in the transcendental perspective, never portraying Srila Prabhupada as an ordinary man subject to the modes of nature. Srila Prabhupada was a divinely empowered pure devotee. He was sent to this world by the Supreme Lord just to spread the Krishna conscious movement to races, classes, and creeds, and thus to offer everyone the opportunity to become a pure devotee and go back to Godhead. Another objective of this work is to attract the leaders and influential members of society to appreciate and love Srila Prabhupada. This biography must be honest, factual, and correct in transcendental knowledge, and please the reader. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita must enlighten and please, and also move the reader to inquire into the writings of Srila Prabhupada. My ultimate objective is be further moved to take up services to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Although it is appropriate while writing an invocation to offer a benediction to the teacher,
To reader.
to the reader, I am fallen and cannot offer any benedictions. Yet I can confidently assure my readers that by reading the life and teachings of Srila Prabhupada, they will gain quick access to the mercy of Krishna, because it is only by the mercy of a great devotee that anyone gets the mercy of Krishna. By reading Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita, those who associated with and served Srila Prabhupada will refresh their remembrance of him, and thus derive ecstasy and rededication, dedication to his service. Those who never knew Srila Prabhupada will also be blessed, because, according to the Vedic literatures, even a moment's association with the pure devotee can take one's life perfect can make one's life perfect. To read Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita is to associate with Srila Prabhupada through the transcendental process of hearing. Therefore, although I myself cannot award any benediction to my readers, this work can do so, as it attracts everyone to Srila Prabhupada. Thus, having made the invocation to this work, offering obeisances, describing my objectives, and offering benedictions, I remain fallen and dumb, begging at the lotus feet of my Guru Maharaj and waiting for his mercy, which alone can allow this poor writer and poor devotee to speak well. My dear Srila Prabhupada, my dear Lord Krishna, if you think I can be trusted to write correctly, then please allow me to do so. There is a great need for this transcendental literature, as the human beings of Kali Yuga are in a deplorable state of spiritual blindness, with no knowledge of the relief to be gained by service to the pure devotee. The devotees of the Lord and the many sincere followers of Srila Prabhupada are eagerly receiving this work. They want to hear more and more of Srila Prabhupada's activities and instructions, and they want to see them presented expertly so that others may also become attracted to join us in loving, dedicated service to Guru and Gauranga. My dear Srila Prabhupada, I know I have to work hard to produce this literature and I promise to do so, but my efforts will be only as empty words unless you become present in these words and bring them to life with transcendental potency. Satsvarupadaasa Goswami. Somebody else would like to read?
Yeah.
Chapter 1.
Can I read? Can I read?
Yeah.
Chapter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
One childhood. We would be sleeping and father would be doing aratis. Ding, ding, ding. We would hear the bell and wake up and see him bowing down before Krishna, Srila Prabhupada. It was Jamastami, the annual celebration of the advent of Lord Krishna, some 5,000 years before. Resident of mostly Bengalis and other Indian, but also many Muslim and even some British were observing the festive day, going here and there through the city street to visit the temples of Lord Krishna. Devout Vaishnavas fasting until midnight chanted Hare Krishna and hear about the birth and activities of Lord Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam. They continue fasting, chanting, and worshipping throughout the night. The next day, September 1st, 1896, in the little house in the Toliganji suburb of Calcutta, a male child was born. He was born on Nadosh Sava and the day Krishna's father, Nanda Maharaj, had observed a festival in honor of Krishna's birth. The boy's uncle called him Nandulal, but his father, Gur Mohandi, and his mother named him Abhay Charan, one who is fearless, having taken shelter at Lord Krishna's lotus feet. In accordance with Bengali tradition, the mother had gone to the home of her parent for the delivery, and so it was that on the bank of the Adiganga, a few miles from his father's home, in a small two-room mud wall house with a tiled roof. Underneath it, Abhay Charan was born. A few days later, Abhay returned with his parents to his 51 Harris son and the astrologer made this specific prediction. When this child reached the age of 70, he would cross the ocean, become a great exponent of religion, and open 108 temples. Abhay Charandi was born into an Indian-dominated imperialism. Calcutta was the capital of India, the seat of the viceroy, the Earls of Elling and Kincardine, and the second city of the British Empire. European and Indian lived separately. Also in the business and education they were intermingled. The British lived mostly in the central Calcutta amidst their own theatre, racetrack, cricket field, and fine European buildings. The Indian lived more in North Calcutta. Here the men dress in dhotis and the women in saris, and while British crown follows their traditional religion and cultures. Abbay's home at 151 Harrison Road was in the Indian section of North Calcutta. Abbay's father, Guru Mohandi, was a cloth merchant of moderate income and belonged to the aristocratic Survana Vandik merchant community. He was related, however, to the wealthy Mulik family, which for hundreds of years had traded in gold and salt with the British. Originally, the Mulik had been members of the D family, a group that traced back to the ancient sage Gautama. But during the Mughal period of pre-British India, a Muslim ruler had conferred the title Mulik Lord on a wealthy, influential branch of the Dees. Then, several generations later, a daughter of the into the Mulik family, and the two families has remained close ever since. An entire block of the side of Harriston Road belonged to the Lokanath Mulik, and Gurmohan and his family live in a few rooms of a three-story building within the Mulik properties. Across the street from the Dees residence was a Radha Govinda temple, where for the past 150 years the Mulik had maintained worship of the deities of Radha and Krishna. Various shops on the Mulik properties provided income for the deities and for the priests conducting the worship. Every morning before breakfast, the Mulik family members would visit the temple to see the deities of Radha Govinda. They would offer cooked rice, kakuris, and vegetables on a large platter and would then distribute the prasadam to the visitors from the neighborhood. Among the daily visitors was Abba Charan accompanying his mother, father, or servant. Srila Prabhupada, I used to ride on the same perambulator with Siddheshwar Mulik. He used to call me Moti, Pearl, and his nickname was, and the servant pushed us together. If one day his friend did not see him, he would become mad. He would not go in the perambulator without me. We would not separate even for a moment. As the servant pushed the baby carriage into the wide expanse of Harrison Road, timing his crossing between the bicycle and horse-drawn hackneys, the two children in the pram gazed up at the fair sky and tall trees across the road. Sound and sight of the hackneys with their large wheels spinning over the road caught and fascinated the attention of the two children. The servant steered the carriage towards the arched gateway within the red sandstone wall bordering the Radha Govinda. Baba and his friend rode underneath the ornate metal arch and into the courtyard. They saw high above them two stone lions, the herald and protectors of the temple compound, their right paw extended. In the courtyard was a circular drive, and on the oval lawn were lampposts with gaslight and a statue of a young woman in robe. Sharply chirping sparrows flitted in the shrub and trees of hops across the grass, pausing to peek the ground, while chorus or pigeons flew, sometimes abruptly flapping their wings overhead, sailing off to another perch or descending to the courtyard. Voices chattered as Bengalis moved to and fro, dressed in simple cotton saris and white dhotis, sometimes posed by the carriage to amuse the golden-skinned boy with the shining dark eyes, but mostly people were passing by quickly going. The heavy double door leading into the inner courtyard were open, and the servant eased the carriage wheels down a foot-deep step and proceeded for then down another step and into the bright sunlight of the main courtyard. There they faced a stone statue of Guru Buddha perched on the 4-foot column, This career of Vishnu Gurudev, half man and half on one knee, his hand folded prayerfully, his eager beak strong, and his wing paws behind him. The carriage moved ahead, past two servants weeping and washing the stone courtyard. It was just a few paces across the courtyard to the temple. The temple area itself, open like a pavilion, was a raised platform with a stone roof supported by a wood pillar 15 feet tall. At the left end of the temple pavilion stood a crowd of worshippers viewing the deities on the altar. The servant pushed the carriage closer, lifted the two boys out, and then held their hand, escorted them reverentially before the deities. Srila Prabhupada, I can remember standing at the doorway of Radha Govinda temple saying prayers to Radha Govinda Murti. I would watch for hours together. The deities were so beautiful with his slanted eyes. Radha and Govinda, freshly bathed and dressed, now stood on the silver throne amidst vases of fragrant flowers. Govinda was about 18 inches high, and Radharani, standing to his left, was slightly smaller. Both were golden. Radha and Govinda both stood in the same gracefully curved dancing pose, right leg bent at the knee and the right foot placed in front of the left. Radharani, dressed in a lustrous silk sari, held up, held up her reddish right palm in benediction, and Krishna in his silk jacket and dhoti played on a golden flute. At Govinda's lotus feet were green tulsi leaves with pulp of sandalwood, hanging around the lordship's neck and reaching down almost to their lotus feet were several garlands of fragrant night blooming jasmine delicate blossom resting lightly on Radha and Govinda's divine form. Their necklace of golden pearls and diamonds shimmered. Radha Rani bracelets were of gold, and both she and Krishna were golden embroidered silk karadas about their shoulders. The flowers in the hand and hair were small and delicate, and the silver crown on the head were bedecked with jewels. Radha and Krishna were slightly smiling, beautifully dressed, dancing on the silver throne beneath a silver canopy and surrounded by flowers. To Abhay, they appeared most attractive. Life outside on Harrison Road and beyond was forgotten. In the coping, and visitors came and went, but Abhay stood silently, absorbed in seeing the beautiful form of Krishna and Radharani, the Supreme Lord and his eternal consort. Then the kirtana began, devotees chanting and playing on drums and karatal. Abhay and his friend kept watching as the pujaris offered incense, each curling smoke hanging in the air, then a flaming lamp, a conch flowers, whisk, and a pickup fan. Finally, the pujari blew the conch shell loudly, and the arti ceremony was over. When Abhay was 1.5 years old, he fell ill with thyroid. The family physician, Dr. Bose, prescribed chicken broth. No, Gur Mohan protested, I cannot allow it. Yes, otherwise he will die. But we are not meat eaters, Gur Mohan pleaded. We cannot prepare chicken in our kitchen. Don't mind, the boss said. I shall prepare it at my house and bring it in a jar, and you simply. Gur Mohan assented. If it is necessary for my son to live, so the doctor came with the chicken broth and offered it to Abhay, who immediately began to vomit. All right, the doctor admitted. Never mind, this is no good. Gurmohan then threw the chicken broth away, and Abhay gradually recovered from the thyroid without having to eat meat. On the roof of Abhay maternal grandmother's house was a little garden with flowers, greenies, and trees. Along with the other grandchildren, 2 years old Abhay took pleasure in watering the plants with a sprinkling can. But this particular tendency was to sit along among the plants. He would find a nice bush and make a sitting place. One day when Abhay was free, he narrowly escaped a fatal burning. He was playing with matches in front of his house when he caught his glove on fire. Suddenly, a man appeared and put the fire out. Abel was saved, although he retained a small scar on his leg. In 90s, when Abel was 4, a venomous plague hit Calcutta. Dozens of people died every day, and thousands evacuated the city. When there seemed no way to check the plague, an old Babaji organized Hare Krishna Sankirtana all over Calcutta. Regardless of religion, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and Parsi all joined. And a large party of chanters traveled from street to street, door to door, chanting the names Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The group arrived at the Gold Mohan House at 151 Harrison Road. Mohan eagerly received them. Although Abel was a little child, his head reaching only up to the knees of the chanters, he also joined in the dancing. Shortly after this, the crowd subsided. Guru Mohan was a pure Vaishnava.
Rena,
Yeah?
maybe somebody else should read because there's a lot of people to read there. Okay. Next. Who's reading next?
Okay, I'll do it. Gaur Mohan was a pure Vaishnava, and he raised his son to be Krishna conscious. Since his own parents had also been Vaishnavas, Gaur Mohan had never touched meat, fish, eggs, tea, or coffee. His complexion was fair and his disposition reserved. At night he would lock up his cloth shop, set a bowl of rice in the middle of the floor so that they would not chew the cloth in their hunger, and return home. There he would read from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the main scriptures of Bengali Vaishnavas, chant on his beads, and worship the deity of Lord Krishna. He was gentle and affectionate and would never punish Abai. Even when obliged to correct him, Gaur Mohan would first apologize. You are my son, so now I must correct you. It is my duty. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father would chastise him, so don't mind. Here Prabhupada, my father's income was no more than 250 rupees, but there was no question of need. In the mango season, when we were children, we would run through the house playing, and we would grab mangoes as we were running through. And all through the day, we would eat mangoes. We wouldn't have to think, can I have a mango? My father always provided food. Mangoes were 1 rupee a dozen. Life was simple, but there was always plenty. We were middle class, but receiving 4 or 5 guests daily. My father gave 4 and there was no difficulty for him. Maybe it was not a very luxurious life, but there was no scarcity of food or shelter or cloth. Daily he purchased 2.5 kilograms of milk. He did not like to purchase retail, but would purchase a year's supply of coal by the cartload. We were happy, not that because we did not purchase a motor car we were unhappy. My father used to say, God has 10 hands. If he wants to take away from you with 2 hands, how can you protect? How much can you protect? And when he wants to give you with 10 hands, then with your 2 hands, how much can you take? Late, around 7 or 8, then after taking bath, he would go purchasing. Then from 10 o'clock to 1 in the afternoon, he was engaged in puja. Then he would take his lunch and go to business. And in the business shop, he would take a little rest for an hour. He would come home from business at 10 o'clock at night, and then again he would do puja. Actually, his real business was puja. For livelihood, he did some business, but puja was his main business. We would be sleeping, and father would be doing arati, ding ding ding. We would hear the bell and wake up and see him bowing down before Krishna. Gaur Mohan wanted Vaishnava goals for his sons. He wanted Abhay to become a servant of Radharani, to become a preacher of the Bhagavatam, and to learn the devotional art of playing mridanga. He regularly received sadhus in his home, and he would always ask them, "Please bless my son so that Srimati Radharani may be pleased with him and grant him her blessings." Enjoying each other's company, father and son used to walk as far as 10 miles, saying the 5 paisa tram fare, saving the 5 paisa tram fare. On the beach, they used to see a yogi who for years had sat in one spot without moving. One day the yogi's son was sitting there, and people had gathered around. The son was taking over his father's sitting place. Guru Mohan gave the yogis a donation and asked their blessing for his son. When Abhay's mother said she wanted to become a British lawyer when he grew up, which meant he would have to go to London to study, one of the Mulik's uncles thought it was a good idea, but Gurmohan would not hear of it. If Abhay went to England, he would be influenced by European dress and manners, he would learn drinking and woman hunting. Gurmohan objected, "I do not want his money." From the beginning of Abhay's life, Gurmohan has introduced his plan. He had hired a professional mridanga player to teach Abhay the standard rhythm for accompanying kirtana. Rajani had been skeptical. What is the purpose of teaching such a young child to play mridanga? It is not important. But Gurmohan had his dream of a son who would grow up singing bhajanas, playing mridanga, and speaking on Srimad Bhagavatam. Would someone else like to read? Pravina or yeah?
Yeah, I would like to go. When Abhay sat to play the mridanga, even with his left hand and the right arms extended as far as he could, his small hands would barely reach the drumheads at the opposite end of the drum. With his right wrist, he would flick his hand just as his teacher instructed, and his fingers would make a high pitched sound. Tee nee 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 ta, and then he would strike the left drum with his open left hand, boom boom. With practice and age, he is gradually learning the basic rhythms, and the God Mohan looked on with the pleasure. Abhay was acknowledged pet child of both his parents, Moti, Nandulal, Nandu, and the Kocha. His grandmother called him Kachuri Kachuri Mukhi, because he is fondness of kachoris, the spicy vegetable stuffed fried pastries popular in Bengal. Both his grandmother and mother would give him kachoris, which he off his little fist. He liked to watch the vendors cooking on the busy roadside and them and from his neighbors until all inside and outside of pockets of his vest were filled. Sometimes when Abhay demanded that his mother make him kachoris, she would refuse. Once she even sent him to bed. When Gaur Mohan came home, asked, "Where is Abhay?" Rajni explained how he had been too demanding and she had sent him to bed without kachoris. "No, we should not make them for him," his father replied, and he woke Abhay and personally cooked puris and kachori for him. Gorman was always careful to see that his son got whatever he wanted. When Gormohan returned home at night, it was his practice to take a little puff rice, and Abhay would also sometimes sit with his father eating puff rice. Once at 10 rupees, Gormohan bought Abhay a pair of shoes imported from England, and each year, through the friend who traveled back and forth from Kashmir, Gormohan would present his son Kashmiri shawl with fancy hands-on border. One day in the market, Abhay saw a toy gun he wanted. His father started to cry. All right, Gormohan said. He bought the gun, and then Abhay wanted another gun. "You already have one," his father said.
Why don't you get another one? On for each hand, Abhay cried, and he lay down on the street kicking his feet. When Gormon agreed to get the second gun, Abhay was pacified. Abhay's mother Rajni was 30 years old when he was born. Like her husband, she came from long established Gaudiya Vaishnava family. She was darker skinned than her husband, and whereas his disposition was cool, her years tended to be fairy. Abhay saw his mother living together peacefully. No deep material conflict or complicated dissatisfaction ever threatened home. Rajni was chaste and religious minded, a model housewife in the traditional Vedic sense, dedicated to caring for her husband and children. Abhay observed his mother's simple and touching attempts to ensure by prayers, by vows, and even by ritual that he continued to live. Whenever he was to go out, even to play, his mother, after dressing him, would put a drop of saliva on her finger and touch to his forehead. Abhay never knew the significance of this act, but because she was his mother, he stood submissively like a dog with its master while she did it. Like Gaur Mohan, Rajni treated Abhay as the pet child, but whereas her husband expressed his love through a legacy and planned for his son's spiritual success, she expressed her through from all danger, disease, and death. She once offered blood from her breast to the one of the demigods with the supplication that Abhay be protected on all sides from danger. At Abhay's birth, she had made a vow to eat with her left hand until the day her son would notice and ask she was eating with the wrong hand. One day, when little Abhay actually asked, she immediately stopped. It had been just another prescription for his survival, for thought that by the strength of her vow, he would continue to grow, at least until asked her about the vow. Well, had he not asked, and she would never again have eaten with the right hand, and according to her superstitions, he would have gone on living protected by her vow. For his protection, she also put an iron bangle around his leg. His playmates asked him what it was, and Abhay self-consciously went to his mother and demanded, "Open this bangle." And when she asked, "I will do it later," he replied, "Now." Once above solemn watermelon seed, and his friends told him that it will grow in his stomach and into a watermelon. He ran to his mother and was assured him he did not have to worry. He would say mantra to protect him. Srila Prabhupada, Mother Yashoda would chant mantras in the morning to protect Krishna from all dangers throughout the day. When Krishna killed some demon, she thought it was due to her chanting. My mother will do a similar thing with me. His mother would often take him to the Gangas and personally bath him. She also gave him the food supplement known as Horlicks, and when he got dysentery, she cured it with the hot puris, dysentery, okay, puris and fried eggplant with salt. So, though sometimes when he was ill, Abhay would show the obstinacy by refusing to take any medicine. But just as he was stubborn, his mother was determined, and she would forcibly administer medicine into his mouth. Through sometimes it took three assistants to hold him down. Srila Prabhupada, I was very naughty break anything. I was angry. I would break the glass hook pipes which my father gave to offer to guests. Once my mother was trying to bath me. I refused and knocked my head on the ground. Blood came out, and they came running and said, "What are you doing? You shall kill the child." Abhay was present when his mother observed the ceremony of Sadhatra during the 7th and 9th month of her pregnancies. Freshly bathed, she would appear in new clothing along with her children, and enjoy the feast of whatever food she desired. And while her husband gave goods in charity to the local brahmanas who chanted the mantras for the purification of the mother and the coming child. I think somebody can read ahead.
Abai was completely dependent on his mother. Sometimes she would put his shirt on backwards and he would simply accept it without mentioning it. Although he was sometimes stubborn, he felt dependent and reassurance of his mother. When he had to go to the privy, he would jump up and down beside her, holding her sari and saying, "You're in, mother, you're in." "Who is stopping you?" she would ask. "Yes, you can go." Only then, with her permission, would he go. Sometimes, in the intimacy of dependence, his mother became his foil. When he lost a baby tooth and on her advice placed it under a pillow, that night the tooth vanished and some money appeared. Abai gave the money to his mother for safekeeping, but later, when in their constant association she opposed him, he demanded, "I will go away from home. Now you give me my money back." When Rajani wanted her hair braided, she would regularly ask her daughters, but if Abhay were present, he would insist on braiding it himself and would create such a disturbance that they would give in to him. Once he painted the bottoms of his feet red, imitating the custom of women who painted their feet on festive occasions. His mother tried to dissuade him, saying it was not for children, but he insisted, "No, I must do it also." Abhay was unwilling to go to school. "Why should I go?" he thought. When his mother complained to Gaur Mohan, Abhay, sure that his mother would be affectionate, said, "No, I shall go tomorrow." "All right, he will go tomorrow," said Gaur Mohan. "That's all right." But the next morning Abhay complained that he was sick and his father indulged him. Rajani became upset because the boy would not go to school, and she hired a man for 4 rupees to escort him there. The man, whose name was Damodar, would tie Abhay about the waist with a rope, a customary treatment, take him to school, and present him before his teacher. When Abhay would try to run away, he would pick him up and carry him in his arms. After being taken a few times by force, Abhay began to go on his own. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Maybe go on to the end of the. There's a break after in about a page time.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see it, so I'll just go on then.
Yeah.
Abhay proved an attentive, well-behaved student, though sometimes he was naughty. Once, when the teacher pulled his ear, Abhay threw a kerosene lantern to the floor, accidentally starting a fire. In those days, any common villager, even if illiterate, could read Mahabharata or Bhagavata. Especially in the villages, everyone would assemble in the evening to hear from these scriptures. It was for this purpose that Abhai's family would sometimes go in the evening to his maternal uncle's house, about 10 miles away, where they would assemble and hear about the Lord's translation. They would return home discussing and remembering them, and then go to bed and dream Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Bhagavatam. After his afternoon rest and bath, Abhay would often go to a neighbor at the black and white pictures in Mahabharata. His grandmother asked him daily to read Mahabharata from a vernacular edition. Thus, by looking at pictures and reading with his grandmother, Abhay imbibed Mahabharata. In Abhay's childhood play, his younger sister, Bhavatarini, was often his assistant. Together, they would go to see the Radha Govinda deities in the Malik's temple. In their play, whenever they encountered obstacles, they would pray to God for help. Please, Krishna, help us fly this kite. They ran along trying to put their kite into flight. Toys included 2 guns, a wind-up car, a cow that jumped when Abhay squeezed the rubber bulb attached, and a dog with a mechanism that made it dance. The toy dog was from Dr. Bose, the family physician, who gave it to him when treating a minor wound on Abhay's side. Abhay sometimes liked to pretend that he was a doctor, and to his friends he would administer medicine, which was nothing more than dust.
Haribo.
Oh, chai.
That was about 20 pages or so, I would say. And I was just looking, there's over 1,000 pages in the book. So that in this first section. So it would be about 50 weeks, which would be half a year to finish the book.
This one's not gonna be.
That would work. I mean, I thought it would take longer, but if you can do that in half a year, it's really good.
Yeah. And I'm so happy because I was worried that after the lockdown we would stop to continue all our lives.
Correct.
Yeah. So before Gaurav Purnima, we should finish the first book.
Okay, we got a deadline.
No, not deadlines. I'm just saying 6 months' time would be close to that time.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Before that, we'll finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gaurav Purnima was in March, no?
March.
Yeah, August, September. So 4.
Yes, Prabhupada was acting like a doctor and he used to give dust. So, like in future also, he become doctor for